Okay, welcome back to the 483rd Knowledge Seekers Workshop here on Thursday, April 27th, 2023. Okay, this is the second half of the program, which usually means that Mr. Kesh is willing to answer questions from people. Is that true today, Mr. Kesh, or is there some other things you'd like to say?
More or less, yes. There's a couple of things I've been asked to raise some points here about. The list we put on now, you see on the screen, we received donations to supply very large numbers of products as a donation to knowledge seekers who could ask for it. It was there, it was paid for. All you need was to ask for it if you could have it. We have fulfilled all these donations and requests. These are the balance of the items which are left to be donated. It's been paid for. If it's yours, just don't ask for it, and then just for the sake of having it. If it's used to you, it's like gas, education, travel kit. It's so many. It tells you one kit left. GANS household reactor, one piece. GANS household reactor is 4 of them. GANS pants long XXL is one piece of the donation left. And there's another one, 2 of them. So we have 2 pants left of the full lot. Household reactors, 4 of them, and 1 GANS education travel kit. This is a small case for what you call it, children, or if you start. So out of huge number of donation, this is what is left to any of you have any interest in or have a use for it. Just don't get it because you can ask for it instead. Somebody might have a use for it, and so be generous about it. Is we received some donations from others. They paid for anyone who wanted to be part of the what we call the trials of tomorrow for addiction. Everything has been allocated. Whatever comes to us, we have allocated and we have delivered. Most of you receive most of your products when you ask for it next few days or weeks. As the things come, most have left. Keshe Foundation is on the way to you. And if there are more people who would like to donate to the foundation, say what they want to donate for, we put it up and you can make what do you call it. These are all postage and package. Everything has been paid by the donator. It's just that if you have a need for it, there was a very large list. Now this is what is left. All been sent or allocated to go. And we still have those a few paintings. We received some ridiculous offers by a couple of people, which would say, we leave it to you, you're conscious. They're still available if you want them. They're in Keshe Foundation Exhibition Center. And we still look for donations. Do not forget, those of you who've been donating or sending money to Keshe Foundation Holland from outside EU, now this account is closed and is transferred to the Keshe Foundation new accounts, which if you write to info, they give you the new accounts where you can make the donations to. And wherever you buy, any purchases from outside EU now will go through the new account system and not through the Keshe Foundation Holland. If there are any other points which we can help you with, you can raise a question. But primarily, we have to inform you the Keshe Foundation Austria Exhibition Center within next few weeks will shut down totally. Operation, we move the systems and our equipment into a new location to one of the largest cities in the world. We are relocating that more people can see, more people can have access to, and becomes one of what we call flagships of the new technology and development exhibitions. And we will inform you as it's done in the next 2, 3, 4 months when it reopens in the position and how it's going to be set up. And we move totally our operation out of the nation of Austria in the coming months, as we cannot operate in a system which is run and the way we now develop our technology in a different way. We are still there for a few months to come, but Keshe Foundation, we ended up in Austria by accident, total, something out of control, but it was the best thing happened to us in so many ways. We came across some of the most beautiful knowledge seekers, and this process now moves. It was not ever planned for us to move to Austria. It was done on the betrayal in marriage, and we saw it. We were moved there, and now we are moving back to a proper structure, and we'll see what happens in the coming time. So we're going back in a stable position for a long term with a beautiful, hopefully, exhibition centers, which many of you can come to and see in one of the most beautiful capitals of the world. We will not be in the mainland Europe, but it'll be an amazing place for you to see, and is set up to bring the technology in the public domain in a very beautiful way. In time, once we finish, we'll ask some of you could participate in part of the exhibition, as you have done something for the foundation to show the evolution of the science and technology around the world. You can still join the 200 people group. The 25 is full. Now we are looking for the 200. You can sign in and join in, and that'll be part of the, as I said, most probably 40, 50 of you will become one of the first passengers of transportation into the structure of the colonies we are setting up to become part. Many of you ask us, how can we join it? Just go to info at Keshe Foundation and you ask for it. They'll be given. If you're outside Europe, you pay to the new accounts. If you're inside Europe, you make a payment to the Keshe Foundation in Holland to what we call further notice. And then Keshe Foundation moves totally, is structural work in a totally different dimension, as is announced by the government. Most of the moves we'll make in the coming time will be in cooperation and collaboration with national governments, and this is the way we want it to be. And once we achieve and complete it, you will understand that Keshe Foundation has become an international organization, and many of you work towards it, and we are hoping to complete in the next few weeks. And in that process, many of the knowledge seekers around the world will become part of the work of the structure. The only thing is, just because you're a knowledge seeker does not give you the God-given right, as we call it. You have to be, whatever it is, excellent proof that you can do that as normal work in any other organization. You have to carry your own, what we call, load on the street. If there are any questions, let's us answer, and then we go to the next step.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Keshe. We have a number of questions here, interesting questions in the Q&A. We'll start off with Peter, I believe he's from Poland, who asks, hello, Mr. Keshe. In trying to visualize single rays to better understand total plasma basics, my questions are, question one, let's say we have two rays in the same environment. The environment is in the strength of a hydrogen. One ray is in the strength of a carbon, and the other ray is in the strength of a bismuth. Which ray is bigger and which ray is smaller? And is the difference between them in this environment just the size?
First of all, this is not the physicality that the size counts. It's, you have to understand, go back on one of the pictures, I think it's book 3. And somewhere in book 2, there's another relevant picture. Does not matter if you have plutonium or carbon or bins or whatever else. Doesn't matter if it's a hydrogen, oxygen, or whatever environment, magnetic field environment. You always have interaction of the fields with the others and the friction and the division, what we call the sparks, with it. So you can stay in the strength of the carbon, but in the interaction with the fields and density of the fields, plasmatic magnetic fields, you create subdivisions and above divisions fields that you get the spectrum of all fields, even though you're in carbon. And in those interactions, let's say you put them, and then it has the same interaction, same environment, parts of the fields of the what we call equal from both rays will interact and create a condition of balance. This is part of understanding the work of the field. When a ray goes through an environment of hydrogen, you call it this magnetic field hydrogen. It's not in the matter state you're talking. If it's a matter state, it hits, absorbs, releases anyone. But if we talk about environment of the magnetic field of hydrogen and the gravitational magnetic field strength, then you see a spectrum of different fields. We've seen this, we tried to publish this in the book, I think it was the first book, where we show the Raman spectroscopy. When we brought infrared spectroscopy and Raman spectroscopy data out, we saw a massive range of fields released from hydrogen to above plutonium, from one ray, one field, just the CO2. So when you understand this, you look at the totality. You don't say which has, because that, whatever you have in comparison to the other, can actually be in more interaction with the hydrogen than the carbon. Then it has less, because it's not the interaction of carbon and whatever the other material is interaction with the fields of the environment. And then those fields with each other, which dictates the condition and the field strength. In so many ways, you could have a carbon in one environment to be the strongest, and you change slightly the hydrogen field strength still in hydrogen to 1 or 2 interaction. The hydrogen loses environmental energy to another, then you find out it becomes weaker. So when you look at the plasma interactions, field interactions, you have to understand there is not singularity in the environment of the test or observation or which one is going to be strong. It's not anymore how many carbon you have and how many oxygen or hydrogen you have. Is what is the field interaction and in a given dimension and direction in the fields. Then you always look at the spectrum. And this is one of the ways that production of the cosmic rays we look at. In technology development, we are fully aware of these things. And we use it. Any other question?
Okay, it's got a second question. It may be the same answer in a way. Pardon me, sorry.
A friend of Jalal with 2 and 3 questions.
Yes, well, he's trying to, as he says, visualize these rays. And the first question was about rays. The second question is actually about 2 plasmas. So he says, let's say we have 2 plasmas in the same environment. For example, in one jar of water, we have GaNs of carbon, and in another jar of water, we have GaNs of bismuth. Which single sphere of plasma in this case is bigger, and which is smaller compared to the other?
It goes by the same rule.
It's kind of a trick question because it forces you
Yes.
to answer in the physicality, but you want to answer in the terms of the fields and
We are in the
so on.
fifth dimension. It's like when you, I'm sure many of you have seen it, we talked about it many times. When you put two gases, especially CO2 or zinc, next to each other, you see that the one gradually column goes up on one side. I don't know if you've seen it. When you put two bottles or two gas bottles of different material, one of them gets pulled up to the side and it goes up the glass, which is illogical in the world of physical dimension. But in fact, as a, pardon?
I was going to say, yes, we've seen that in the Kesh Plasma reactor group a few times over the years.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you cannot speak about plasma and try to fit it into the world. It doesn't work. You cannot be camel bird and call yourself ostrich. You have to decide. If you're talking about dimension of the bottle of a gas of this, bottle of gas of that, you have to find out what's the interaction. So go and live in one and or the other and compare what happens to me in this one, what happens to me in that one. This is one of the biggest problems we have in Keshe Foundation. And but many scientists have been on the table. They try to fit a plasma, understanding of a plasma, into the materials, and it doesn't work. So this doesn't fit the law of physics we understood, we've been taught. Yes, because you cannot mix oil and water together. How come you understand that? But you cannot understand, you cannot mix plasma with the matter state unless you bring the strength of the plasma down enough to manifest itself in the matter. Then you can say what it is. It's exactly what happens in your blood. In your blood, you have iron, but it's not pieces of iron coming from a nail. It's iron in a plasmatic magnetic field of the vacuum of the body of the man in his own condition of the vacuum. And then when the man pulls it out, now you're in a matter state. It's exactly what I told you when we send you to the moon. When we send you to the moon, it's the reverse. You are inside atmospheric condition of the Earth, outside atmospheric condition of the moon. In this world, why all our sciences are upside down, as we call it, we are outside and we go inside the body of the man, we take something from inside, and now we want to fit it to us. It's not that. You go inside the blood, you see, if you see a single iron atom flying, you see it as an energy, you see it as plasma. And this is where there is a huge problem in the world of science today for people to understand the plasma technology. Plasma is a plasma, matter state is a matter state. What happened in a transition? But we take your blood out and we can count ions in it and calcium in it. Yes, you can, because you change this environment. In this environment, this is what it shows itself. Energy of calcium was a calcium matter state. So we have no choice now. We open the space technology, so we come to understand it. Which environment, what field strength, what gravitational magnetic field, what inertia is involved in us manifesting the energy as a gas, as a matter state. And if you don't get confused and understand this, then you start progressing forward. This is why 99% of you as knowledge seekers are got stuck with a mega units and don't understand it. Even our own knowledge seekers have problem with this at the highest level. I explained how a maggraph system has to be made. We got our experts to make it. And they use old systems, which shows already reduction, but they did not do it the way we asked it to be done. We tested, doesn't work, it's zero. But when we looked at the structure of field flow, it was not the way it was told to be done. Another team has restructured it the way it was supposed to be done. Now we see MAGRAP reduction, magnetic field increase, and reduction in electricity bills. Because you have to follow everything as a plasma, not when it suits. 99% of you, which made the MAGRAPs as hasn't worked, you have not understood how you yourself have put a spanner in your work. You have not understood, even though it's in the drawing of the, it is in the drawing, but look at it the way it's done. And then you find out. How come some of you have a huge reduction and some of you, oh, it's all fake. The fakeness is in your knowledge, not in our technology. And this is one of the biggest problems, because you try to fit a plasma technology, which is created by the matter, into the matter state which doesn't work and it doesn't exist. Any other question?
Okay, you mentioned the moon, and there was a question in YouTube from Antonio about the first two people on the moon. Will they be able to bring back evidence when they return back on Earth?
We hope so. There are a couple. No way. And we hope, yes. Don't forget, we tested this in knowledge seekers. He could be listening himself. One of your knowledge seekers, when he came to Linz, he said he's in the moon. He went to the moon and he could feel the stones. We put him back in the machine again. We said, okay, can you pick up the stones and put them outside? And we watched him. He was actually physically picking up the stones and putting them outside. And we asked him to drop it. We were not ready. Today we have the machine, we have this technology, we have developed it, that if he put his hand inside what we give him to drop it, we would have seen the moonstones. Now we have the technology. We developed the technology for this purpose. So if without that we have the what we call the tools of conversion, because we dictate the whole understanding of inertia. Yes, whatever they collect, we can manifest as a matter state when they land, when they come back. Basically, the biggest thing for us will be to send the people from excursions to the position and the place where Americans claim they landed in 1960s. Would we see the remnants of the Apollo? Would we see the flags? Would we see the footprints by now is long gone? The dust has covered them up. What would the Americans claim? Oh, it was there, the moon dust has taken it. Out of 2 or 3 landings, we should be able to see the truth. And that is in the next few months. And we hope we haven't taken for a fall. And we hope they can stand it. So we give a notice to the American NASA organization, please come up straight, because soon, in the next few months, there'll be 2, German and the Russian, checking out. And let's see if a lot of claims of false flag and really done, and it's all Hollywood scenery, and it's a reality with the sand and the stones become a reality. As I said, when I was invited, I went to Iran years ago. I went to the building, you see the symbol of Iran, the Freedom Square. Underneath there, as a child of very, very young age, I went and I queued for hours to see a stone which the American gifted to the Iranians, and it was put there for display to see. I wonder if I wasted hours of my life standing for a fake stone from Arizona desert, or was really truly a stone from the moon. And our travelers in the next few months will tell us. It's as simple as that. We know some people, what do you call it? Will claim that the Americans never been. Some people say they've been, and all beans now become to being as the new technology delivers. Any other question?
Okay, our next question is from Jefferson Modesto from Brazil, who says, thank you very much for your presence among us. Please correct me if I'm wrong. From what we learned from you, our planet does not provide all the energy that the beings that inhabit it need, because it was created with the wrong intention. The creator of our planet and the other planets in the solar system is the sun. So did the sun have the wrong intention in creating the earth? What was wrong with the sun's intention at the time of Earth's creation? If all creatures on earth are created with the same wrong intention, and that wrong intention cannot be carried to other locations in the universe, can we only leave here when the entire structure of the earth is corrected? Thank you very much.
There are two questions to ask, and maybe this will answer you. There is something else I have to tell you before we go. All your Brazilians have lost your Telegram chats due to a court order in Brazil that none of you can use Telegram anymore. And you all migrated to Zoom for your common, what you call, connections and whatever knowledge sharing. Those of you who come through Zoom, you have not noticed it from Brazil. This has happened, and it's a court order, nothing to do with us. The whole of Brazil has lost its Telegram by not following the, what do we call it, court order, delivering the, what do you call it, private information of people or their communications to the government. And so what we see, you must see reduction or total loss of the Brazilians outside Brazil communicate. The Brazilian channel, they all have migrated to the Zoom of the Keshe Foundation channel, which is set up by Rafael. And answering your question, we need to understand the principle of the work. And we need to understand the interaction of the fields. Many of these questions is just a repeat and repeat questions. And what we see, the Keshe Foundation knowledge has to be understood in its totality. Then many of these questions, what even you're asking is the third, fourth, fifth time you hear. You'll find it in the archives of the Keshe Foundation. Any other question?
Okay, another question from the Brazilian community says, last week you said when the gravity of the planet is formed, the higher order absorbs the lower order or weaker strength fields, and then mass is created. What does higher order mean? Because doesn't the stronger give to the weaker? But in this case, you're saying the higher absorbs the weaker and creates plasmas.
The understanding is when we call it the higher order fields, stronger fields dictate the gravity, the level of the gravity. In order to create gravity, you need both field strength, magnetical and gravitational. And the highest order is a field interaction. So anything when we say absorbs, it means below that the strength is already covered within. So the highest order that the Earth gravitational field can absorb, and we know as a data of material, let's say it's plutonium, whatever we have up to now, a few elements further up the, what do you call it, in the table of the materials, in the periodic table, wherever you look at, this is what we can, they tell you is so many percentage, and the rest we call it exotic. So anything below the last material we have actually observed to be able to detect on this planet is the highest order, the strength field. And the other elements above this plasmatic field strength that exist in other planetary systems, in other part of the universe, but Earth does not have within its strength to be able to interact with them to pull them in, because collective fields of the Earth are not that strong to that strength to be able to absorb. The same is below submatter hydrogen. There are fields which they can manifest themselves as a matter state below hydrogen, but we do not have the field strength to absorb them. So we don't see them as a matter state of subatomic structure. And when we say the highest order is not to give, is to include, to be able to absorb. If you're monoenergetic, plasmatic field, you're like a star. When you're a composite, the highest field strength dictates the gravity. And the fields of the gravity and the strength of the gravitational field of that planet, because it cannot absorb. If your gravitational field does not go over the strength of the copper, sorry, on that planet you won't see any zinc. It does not have it to absorb it, to interact with it, to create it, does not possess it to create the inertia for its manifestation in matter state. That's what it means. It's not that the higher gives to a lower, it's understanding the creation of fields and their interaction and creation of what we call the plasma, and at the same time, for it to exist through interaction of the mass to what we call the weight interaction, or what we call the weight interaction equal inertia, allows the manifestation of matter state of that field. If you don't have the inertia of a given material, you cannot manifest it as a matter. It does not matter even if it exists in the dimension of plasma. This is why we see these creatures above the planet Earth recorded by NASA, been spoke about it many times, because Earth does not have the inertial value of their field strength to convert it at that level to the matter state that we see them as a new animal, new structure. We create a plasmatic field inertia of them, and they exist above. If you want to see them as a living things on Earth, we do not have inertial field strength to extend that far to allow them to convert in a manifestation of matter state. That's what it is. It's not that the highest give to lowest, and it's all through the common denominator field strength. There are matters we know. You got to realize something very simple. Go through the human physiology. And whatever we have in periodic table, which the gravitational magnetic field of the Earth has manifested to be seen as a matter state, you find it in the body of the man. One way or another, in somewhere, and they can measure it, and they tell you, even as plutonium, there is such an amount of it in the body of the man somewhere. Because we create gravitational magnetic field, plasmatic field that interacts with the inertial magnetic field, the strength of the planet. So we, in our body, we absorb it according to the ratio. And this is why I always say, if it is on this planet, as a matter state, you find it in the body of the man, somewhere the DNA and RNA have managed to use it to the advantage of the use, speeding up certain things or interacting with some parts of the body of the man. There is no matter which is in the periodic table of the elements of this planet which does not exist in the body of the man. Impossibilities. We have to find it, where it is and how much it is, how minute it could be. So when you speak about the high order, is what the field strength in the interaction of the magnetic gravitational field of the center hydrogen allows to be the highest order inertia to be created with the gravitational field interaction to give the mass of the body of the entity. Any other question?
Okay, we have a question from George. George B, who asks, with the new technologies that you are about to reveal in the near future, would it be possible to treat Alzheimer with a patient that has hip replacement?
Hip replacement, we do not touch. We always said it, and we are very clear about it, the reason of it. Alzheimer's is handled by the doctors at Keshwat.
So even though they've had a hip replacement, they can still treat the Alzheimer?
No, cannot be done. Cannot be done. Cannot be done. If you have any external motors, valves, hip replacement, because this is a plasmatic system, it covers everything. There are cases which has been tested by some cases, but at that time it looks perfect. I got rid of everything else, but because you have started the process, now you, in the long term, you see the growth of the bones or hip bones, and then because it's weeks and months later down, you got your memory back, but now the bone is growing, and then you have another hip problem. Because you create, we know what is at the time. This is clarity about the knowledge. This is not doing what the present pharmaceutical does. Present pharmaceutical data research from Canadian government over 20, 30 years tells us clearly people over 55 who go through chemotherapy, research papers published by the Canadian government through the universities and research development centers, majority of the people, a very large percentage, die within 5 to 7 years after chemotherapy. And they studied this over 20, 30 years. And then the pharmaceuticals never tell you this because they cannot tell you, we're giving you death sentence 5 years or 7 years. Chemotherapy is beautiful, yes, my thing. But due to the process of the aging, reduction in the strength of the bone marrow and the rest, all these people die of a very simple cold. And they say, oh, he died of cold, not from chemo. But in fact, chemo caused blockages of the holes of the bone, which led to no immune system. In this technology, we can't do this. We have to be transparent. There are knowledge which is there, the technologies which is there, which in conjunction with us can create new conditions. And with the knowledge we have to stop it. We are not there just to, we are a stichting, we are a foundation. We work through the structure to bring benefits and understanding, not just getting things done. Even when tests done by our doctors or we've done things in the past, we inform fully what could be the consequences of it. Yes, you cannot use, because long run, with the plasmatic fields in the body of the man, the growth of the bone is a very high possibility. And then what happened with the extension of the hip you put in? If you haven't had a hip transplant, I know our doctors are busy with a case like this. You see if the bone marrow can help with the cartilage to grow, and you don't need to change the hip and the rest of it. Then yes, we can look at different things. But if you have Alzheimer's and the hip replacement, sorry, the truth is, through our experience, bone will grow, because now they found the fields of the strength within the system that allows them to grow, because they usually naturally grow. This is what happens when you're a baby. You don't, you're not born out of the womb of the mother with 10 centimeter femur, and when you're 50 years old, you still have 10 centimeter bones grow. So that's the habit of the structure. What was cut off, now they want to cover, and then they push the processes while they were out, and then they break the hip bone. So this is the reason we say, at the moment, with the knowledge we have, no. And this is what I said to the officials from the government. With the new space technology which we bring in, if we bring you, as many of you have been offered this, but you never understood what was on the table to you, is this cover of the what we call the policy by the Keshe Foundation. If you go into prevention, so if you put, let's say, 1 million people on prevention today, 10% have a cancer, 10% have a heart problem, 20% have Alzheimer's, and the rest of it. Out of this, let's say 1 million people. Some of them are at the early age, they have none of it, but they go through the process of prevention. In 20 years' time, those who came in at the beginning of the process will die off. They are 50, 60, 100 years, 80 years old, and they die. But those who join in at 15, 16 as part of the family, now they have no more diseases because they went through prevention twice a year. So we'll see less diseases over 60, 70, 80 years old. They live a very perfect life. Living a sick life in the coming decades, it'll be unheard of. Most of the diseases today we suffer for, with especially now what is coming in with the collaboration of the Keshe Foundation with the major governments around the world, we will see reduction in the next 20, 30 years of the number of the people being ill of the hospitals. because the new generation has to go through prevention regularly. Fix it before it becomes a problem. You don't have the problem in 20, 30 years' time. When you have a hip injury to a football game at the age of 25, in the age of 30, 35, 40 becomes a hip replacement. When you've gone through the process, you know you have a hip replacement, and the prevention technology has been used to regrow the cartilage, you don't need a hip replacement 30 years down the line. The world of pharmaceutical and medicine is going to be radically changing in the coming time. When you have a problem with your son, you cannot handle it, and then if 40 years down the time become a prostate cancer, when you go through a prevention, even you join it at the first year of your marriage before you had a child, and then you had a child and you have a problem with it, it's already psychologically through the process has been failed. So reduction in the hospitals, reduction in care will become a thing of the past. In a way, we reduce it so much that it won't exist. People with Alzheimer's, in the new generation of going through prevention, I think it will be a very, very rare case. And even if it appears, technology that will handle it at the outset, not till nothing can be seen. So, yes, if you didn't have a hip replacement and you had Alzheimer's, doctors can help you. The new technology can do something for you. But if you had a transplant, if you had a, any kind of surgery which physically something put in your body, we say no, because we understand the problems it can create. One interesting point is that in the coming months, the wellness, welfare, health of the Keshe Foundation will be handled by governments in a very big way. And I wonder how many Belgians will move out of Belgium to receive these cares or try to use. We blocked all the apps into Belgium. And they come out of Belgium, they change their passport to receive the wellness care of the Keshe Foundation, knowing that the others are benefited by it. Our work now, through a structure of its progress, has moved on to a very, very different way of processing with the doctors. And even our doctors are learning because they were trained in the matter state, in the physical state. They've never seen a psychological pattern in most diseases, and how even you can use psychology to change physical damages. And this is a process which will take a long time to teach and to learn and to be taught. As I said, past few weeks, gentleman in the meeting says, the guy said, this is against all the books written by Newton's law and Einstein. He said, we write the books for the others to learn from us with a new technology. And we have started writing the new books. And most of you carry book number 1, 2, and 3. The books you have, we call it book 1, 2, and 3, will become the basis of the new education in the world of science. Not because we wrote it, because it's what explains man will look at the plasma and the creation. Any other question?
Well, we have another medical type question, and you can, of course, reserve to answer it in whatever degree you wish, Mr. Keshe, because I know we're restricted somewhat in that way. But I thought we should address it. This is from Sarah in the chat here. Says, hello, Mr. Keshe. This is a big honor to hear you in this online session. I am very thankful to Pedram, who introduced you to me and explained about your precious activities. I am an Iranian woman who was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2017, but then it became metastasis and spread to different parts of my body throughout the lymph nodes in 2021. For about 10 months, it went from bad to worse. And although I'd been told that I am not curable anymore, then I started to research and I could stop and decrease the cancer in my body through natural ways. I am suffering a lot from side effects of the chemo medications. I would be grateful if I had any chance to hear from you regarding these matters.
Write to health@spaceshipinstitute.org. You'll be passed on to the doctors responsible, and they will decide in how and if there is possibility for them to support your health. Now, and this medical-based doctors using the Keshe Foundation technology will increase rapidly in the coming months. Then we can use. The problem with chemotherapy is not the chemotherapy itself; it's the side effects of the chemotherapy, which allows the cancer to spread. And you see the spread up in different ways. If the chemotherapy understanding of its what we call it reduction or control of the cancer cell is interconnected with the knowledge of the plasma technology, there could be a lot of advantages. There could be a lot of things can be done. I'm a great believer in chemotherapy, but understanding its side effects and its problem to be brought under control of the what do you call it? Cancer. It has a lot of problems. Okay, it's like the new vaccines which we see, and they say it has so many side effects for children. We have to find out where the side effects are and how we can eliminate it. Can we transfer it into energy that is not there in the matter state? And what does it do? And how we can help. A lot of medicines do not do what they're supposed to. They're just there to make money. A lot of things have a benefit, but because we don't know how to control the other parts of it, gives us this massive problem. If chemotherapy used the right way, as an energy level, we can touch most of the cancers, without a doubt. But now today, the Keshe Foundation doctors are testing a new thing. We are testing a new, we'll see in the next few weeks they report to us. They're working on it, they're testing on it, and we have introduced a new dimension into cancer process to Keshe Foundation. It's getting tested by the doctors. If we think we will see a huge development to be reported by doctors. And if we see that, then we immediately implement it, we announce it and bring it into public. We understand it. It's now, I think, the second week they are using it, or yes, a second week more or less. And we need to wait for the data in another, most probably 6 weeks, 8 weeks. And see the new technology developed and used by the doctors gives us the result. And then we understand more and how we can even eradicate the side effects of the chemotherapy. This is now going on today with doctors at the, what do you call it, Wellness Centers and the Keshe Foundation. But we see, we understand it, we see it, and we have incorporated it in our systems. and the doctors are using it, and we'll see what comes up. But get in touch to health at spaceshipinstitute.org, and then the doctors will explain to you, and we'll see what they decide. Any other question?
Very good. Question from Doug. He says, hello, Mr. Keshe, if you wish, can you give us an update on Naomi's current position? We all love her so much.
Naomi's condition, I met her 2 years ago in June. And there's a lot of, she is stagnated in a condition where when I met her, I realized what is not accomplished completely by the process. And I explained that to Giovanni, what needs to be done. That we have brought Naomi out of the what we call field coma, but not of a physical coma. And it needs to be done. Full instructions given to Giovanni what needs to be done. And then due to process of the accident, there is some physical damage to her leg ligaments or in that position. Otherwise, she is good. She's living a normal life as possible. And I know one of our knowledge seekers works very hard. She's trying to see how she can do. But essentially, what we, with us being so busy with everything else with it, on my visit to Giovanni when I was in Italy a couple of years ago, but also they said, you haven't completed the job. I thought this should have been done. And physical coma is different than neurosystem coma. And that has not been done. The process, and Giovanni has to complete it. And she'll live a total normal life. This is what we call the soul of man and soul of physicality. And the physicality, when you don't complete the process, you do not open one of the gates. So it's there. But she lives a normal life as anyone. She's active. She lives home, and very little communication. But she lives a normal life. But the physical coma has not been taken out. And there's a way to do it, and they have the access to it.
We have a question from Farzam in the chat here, who says, last week, Mr. Keshe said that the soul plans for physicality in any activity. So what is the reason for abnormal human behavior?
Maybe that abnormal human behavior is a soul behavior. To us, it's abnormal. Abnormality is from the point of view of the observer. Otherwise, to the one who does it is normal. It's very interesting. When you speak to the hyperactive child, they never see themselves as hyperactive. When you speak to someone who's got Alzheimer's, they say, no, I remember everything. I said, do you remember this? No. Do you remember that? But I don't have Alzheimer's. It's a point of view. Any other question?
Okay, question in the Q&A from Ludasan, who says, good morning, Mr. Keshe. If our body is all GANs and the food we ingest becomes GANs immediately, is there any importance to take sweets, for example, 1 hour before the main course or 1 hour after? Thanks a lot.
Depends on what. Some people do. In some countries, sweet comes first. They have the fruit first, and then they have the meal. In some countries, we have the fruit and the dessert after, or what we call it, fruits after. In the Iranian traditional family, you never eat watermelon after the food. You always eat watermelon before the food. Because the belief is that we eat usually as our main diet rice, and then you put so much water on the rice after you had the food, now it expands in the stomach. Now grains of the rice supposedly in the stomach being digested, but they expand. So you eat melon after the food, but you don't eat melon before the food. And when you go for a Chinese food, the sweets is part of the main course. It's there. You want to help yourself, and you start with the sweet somethings. So it's how we look at it. You can eat sweets before or after. It's a sugar content which you absorb. Would you give it the energy or not? It's individually thought and decided, and actually being a culture in a way. To the Western world, yes, we have what we call dessert or sweet. Because why do we have, what's the reason that we introduce dessert? If you look at it, dessert is usually something sweet-based or whatever, or fruit, is because the food we eat, meat or whatever, takes longer time to digest. It takes a lot of energy. And during that time of shortness of energy to digest the food we ate, we are short. And so you go to sleep, you're tired. So we take that dessert, the sugar, to cover that immediate shortfall in the energy for digestion of what we ate. That's the reason dessert was created. Not to fall asleep after food. You still have enough energy that the instant supplement of the sugar content of the dessert will cover you enough till the time is needed for the energy of the main course, pasta, or whatever you ate, which is a longer time to digest. There's a reason not everywhere around the world, except in Western Europe, or most of the European countries, we have dessert. In the West, we in the other part of the world, you have a fruit after the meal to do the same job. But we do it so naturally, it's become part of our work that we don't notice it. Any other question?
Okay, another question from Ludasan. Can you explain how in the body is a vacuum and the body is not flat? I guess he means flat from the vacuum condition or something.
This is a different vacuum. It's a plasmatic magnetic field vacuum, not extracted of content vacuum as we do in a human, as we do it from any object. Vacuum condition means magnetic field, gravitational field strength. Vacuum. It means it has a different inertia position, which does not allow matter state to manifest itself, but in the plasma does. When you work in laboratories with a high vacuum system, when we vacuum like space reactors, we don't see everything going out. We leave the vacuum machine running for an hour, 2 hours sometimes, to capture the last little atom it might be freed somewhere we haven't captured. Because that's a matter state capture. And on our meters, we see there's still matters going through the system, even though you're in -12, -13 operation. That vacuum is mean extracting matter state out of a content, but the ball is still in a field content. It still has fields. The vacuum of the man is not a matter state, it's a vacuum but created by the plasma of the gases of the matters in the body. It's a terminology used in respect to the field strength conversion to the outside. If it was vacuum, the body will flatten. Yeah, if you put a pipe in your body and try to suck everything out, you go flat. It's like we say space value vacuum is minus 12, 13 outside the Earth gravitational, but it's full of cosmic dust and everything else. A meteorite is traveling it. We talk about vacuum condition that matter can still exist, fields can still exist, but matter can be part of its content. It's mixing up of the terminology of two cycles of the knowledge matter state and field strength state.
So Mr. Kesh, for example, in the ocean, would that also be essentially a vacuum condition for the field condition and so on, or is it only inside of a living body that's?
No, oceans are in a vacuum condition of their own. A field strength that allows them to exist in that condition.
Even the stone. A rock, I was going to say, yes, exactly.
Yeah,
even
this is, now we understand it's, what do you call it, field strength dependent. So it can be, if you take a stone into space, another position, it will become like a jelly. It'll start moving, it has life. But on the inertial gravitational field of this planet is solid. It's like, you know, sugar candy. It's solid, you can't even chew it. You put it in the environment of the hot water, it just melts to nothing, you can't even see it. And if you look at the bottom of it, it's a beautiful thing. Like sometimes it just carries you out when you see. If you get the crystal sugar, we call it, and then put it in a hot water or tea, and you see it melting, I mean, disappearing of the wood, which wood stick, which is very essential. If you go to the Iranian restaurants, they always give you tea with this, what do you call it, candy stick on it, and they put it in the tea, and then it disappears from a stick. If you sip the top of the tea without shaking it, it has no sweetness. But at the bottom, you see waves of different densities of fields. This is how it'll be in a space. You're solid in one position, but now you become a plasma of fields. It's just, you see the wave of the sugar at the bottom. This is all it is. It's the same water, the same crystal, but if you let it go cool, it doesn't become crystallized. It still sits there in that wave. This is how we are and will be in the space.
So is that vacuum condition that you speak of, is it a relative thing? Like, for example, of the candy melting in the hot water, that's it went into the vacuum of it went into the vacuum of the hot water and it expanded and dissolved its structure. But it was okay in the air. So would the air be in a vacuum condition in that case or not?
Yeah, but you see, if you put that same thing in the cold water, it might not happen. It stays there for longer. Mm-hmm. Once we create a partition, doesn't matter what it is, we create a new environment. And the wall of that containment and the content of that containment dictate the new environment and condition of field. You see this with caustics when you make ganses. You don't use hot water, you just put the ganses, you create a different field strength, and you see how fat sits on the top, how ganses move inside. And if you understand this, that you can create different field strengths, now you understand new construction technologies which come forth in the coming time using plasma. We see it. We'll see this in next maybe 5 or 10 years. Now that we are moving into a new dimension of technology development, if you get a wall of, let's say you want a wall of 10 centimeters, you create a field of a strength of copper on one side and create the field strength of iron on the other side. And introduce a specific inertial field in between the two, you create a new material dimension and a new manifestation of the field. That from the one side, it looks that the room is made of iron plates. On the other side, looks as it's made by the copper plates. But in fact, they're both in plasma condition. This is how the future constructions will be done. By changing plasma condition, you create new inertias, and then you create the size fit, height fit. This technology is known to us. It's actually, if you go in the patents, is in there. So we are about to introduce it into commercial application in the next few years. And what you decide in between two fields dictates that there's going to be isolation, no sounds, no heat, no radiation, no visual manifestation. Now, if you understand how to, you can make a sphere of it, you can make a ball of it, you can make a straight wall of it. As I said, we've entered a new era of the technology development and research. And new Keshe Foundation institutes will set up to research this. Any other question?
The hand up here with Farzam. Go ahead, Farzam.
سلام جوجه.
سلام از خواهید
حالتون چطور؟ ممنونم. شما خوب هستین؟ ممنونم از شما خوبین؟ سلامت باشین. من فقط خواستم خدمتتون عرض کنم که اون خانم که الان راجع به کنسر صحبت کردن دیروز پیغام گذاشتن تو کلاس و قرار بودش که تو کلاس بهشون گفتیم به من یعنی یه پیغام روی چی بدن، ندادن روی تلگرام و حتی گفتم پدرام هم با من در تماس میتونه به من چی بده، نه پدرام نه ایشون هیچ تماس نداشت. گفتم که اگر که الان میشنون تماس داشته باشن، برای راهنماییشون قرار شد که اینجوری بشن. ممنونم. خواهش میکنم. آقا تمام. Thank you, Rick.
Let me translate. This is the answer to the lady who says she's Iranian with a breast cancer. Dr. Parapur is the medical spokesman of the Keshe Foundation. And he says that the lady was in touch with them or made an inquiry with them yesterday in a Persian teaching, and she's been asked to get in touch with that. We see how we can support her, but they haven't got in touch with. So if you're listening, please go back to the Iranian team with Dr. Parapur, and then they know what to do and next step. Any other question?
ممنونم.
خیلی متشکرم آقای دکتر بهرام.
قربون شما. سلامت.
Okay, we have a question from Chris. Tough question. He says, thanks for what you're doing, Mr. Keshe. How does the change will come? The establishment doesn't want this change. With sweet words?
Leave that to us. We've been well seasoned with these things. Leave it to us. We will find a way. You see, the establishment, if you look at it, we never realized that the establishment was established within the Keshe Foundation to make sure nothing happens in Keshe Foundation. And we got rid of that establishment. And Now with the changes and developments in the Keshe Foundation comes that we got one of the well-rooted establishment of the Keshe Foundation. Now we are growing. Before the establishment had the biggest spice sitting right in the center of the Keshe Foundation, every development was scaffolded directly from inside. Now it's gone. And we've seen the progress and development. I'm sure most of you are familiar with the case and the situation, and you've seen how Keshe Foundation has grown leaps and heights in the past 3 years, especially. You cannot grow when people inside work against because of the knowledge and the information they have in there. We got some 2 or 3 people in the Keshe Foundation, which a lot of you know. And with that, we have changed the direction of Keshe Foundation. You don't see them around, they're long gone, and they use the Keshe Foundation and work for other organizations to damage the Keshe Foundation for their own benefit. And so long gone, and we are moving on. Establishments work against themselves, and sometimes things work different way than what they planned. Any other question?
Okay, from Cristiano, a question from the Brazilian community, someone there says, if you learn your lesson, then do you still have to balance the fields in physicality, or do you transcend the physical dimension? We're not hearing you, Mr. Keshe. I think your microphone's off there.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I said sometimes what you think you learn is opposite to what you were supposed to learn with the teaching of your soul. So the soul puts you back on the test again to get it right. It's what we presume we learn from, and what we assume we learn from, but it was in reality what it was supposed to be learned from, or learned by it. And this is one of the things, we make the same mistake again and again till we learn from it. If any of you, in the session of tomorrow with addiction, have a habit of going into the same kind of position and relationship again and again, we'll be interested to hear from you after the session. It's a very intensive session tomorrow, and it'll be very interesting what habits we have. Why do we go from the same failure in relationship to another one that fails the same for the same reason? Are we addicted to it, or we challenge ourselves to it? And this is a very, very interesting point and condition. And we will handle this in the addiction session tomorrow. Any other question?
We've got a couple more in the Q&A here, and one in YouTube. From YouTube, from DBZ, I have one question. What are the meridians of our body, and how do they function in relation to the strength of the fields of the 3 layers of the skin in the plasma application?
Our skin dictates the meridians, because that contains them. The field flow goes. If you break your leg and twist it slightly, or gets broken and gets twisted, and it changes the field flow in your body because of the way you walk, And this can go into the RNA of your body and the DNA due to change of the fields in the body and the whole structure of the meridians and their physicality. You'll find maybe your third generation, second generation, what you had the physical, this what you call it, change, will become part of the structure of the life. Because the skin and the bone have registered that as normality. And you'll find out if you have a child at the age of 20, 18, 20, and then, which happens quite a lot, and then you decide at the age of 45, 50 to have a child with the same partner, you will see, and let's say you had an accident, deformity, or something happened to you at the age of 15, 16, you didn't leave it to your first child at the age of 18. But with a higher rate of chances, your child born after 45, 50 you created will carry possibility of that gene change in it. And she might not show it, but they might show it in the next generation. Even psychological conditions. We understand this, and this comes because of the magnetic field within the body and what you call meridians and the field flows of the flow of the body of the man will transfer that physical deformation into DNA and RNA. So it has a direct effect. And our skin, how it's twisted, how it's turned, how it's got scarred, can manifest itself in that physical condition later on. It needs 20 to 25 years to be ingrained or in a way remembered by the body or by the brain to replace the same position, so it becomes a natural process. We see this now, we understand technology quite a lot. And some people like to call it genetic defects, but now we find the effect of genetics, the reasons for it, and we understand it more. Any other question? I would like to finish in the next few minutes.
Okay. Send a message here. Okay, now a couple more quick questions then. We have Elizabeth in the Q&A. Thank you for all the love and knowledge you give us. Foreign language syndrome is suffered by some people who, after an accident that hit their head, their brain, when it suddenly recovers, speaks in different languages. This can help us understand that total knowledge is in our interior, in the soul of man.
This we saw in a couple of cases when they went through the system. They didn't need an accident. When we put people in the system, I think if we mentioned it before, people could not speak or communicate in English. They were fluent after they went through the system. And they said, oh, I didn't know. I said, you speak. It's not a needed trauma. It's access to a knowledge we already have of all languages. We will try this very soon in a series of trials of seeing how far we can transfer knowledge, language from one to another. And it is not a transfer, it's actually, it's a difference between speaking a language and speaking a language. Many people who learn English by the book and by English classes, or maybe lived in English-speaking country for a year or two, they speak English, but they don't actually speak English, which means they don't understand the culture, they don't understand the emotion, they don't understand the essence of the words. I'll explain to you something and then you understand. We had a case where in English language, it's very common to use the word of bastard. It means a child from an unknown father. And the lady was told, your child, language, what was a bastard? Which was just a commentary speaking. I says, no, he's not a bastard. I know the father. And everybody looked. You don't know what it means in English? It means he doesn't behave in the norm. He abuses the condition. And this is the difference with speaking language through the soul. You will understand the emotion of the language. You understand the terminology of the language. You just don't speak it. And this comes by the interaction of the souls, which you have now access to. You don't necessarily means you have the access to the knowledge of that language, Chinese, English, whatever, in your brain. Through the connection of the souls, you have access to somebody who speaks the English with the full meaning of the English. That you, when you say joke, you see in English to some people who don't speak English, they laugh. But you see, the laugh is just, they don't want to show that they didn't understand. Because if there are English people speaking it, they know this joke had a hidden meaning, a second meaning to it, and they were talking that. And they laugh because of that. But the one who hasn't just smiles because just say, oh, I understood. This will not happen in the dimension of what you call speaking language through the soul. In a way, you have a server who has an emotional understanding. Could it be in your brain you can access to it? You bring it and you translate it to, and this understanding will come very much to you. You will understand. So I don't know how I understood the emotion of it, how I could translate it. Then we learn the way you tap to the soul to see your father who died years ago, and you tap to the soul of somebody else you love, and they feel your love. Through the same process now, we understand the soul of the language, that we tap to somebody who's Chinese. So when even we speak the Chinese, we hear the Chinese, we understand it, we understand the emotion of it, the essence behind it, the culture of it. And then the speaking language will change. It'll be the same when we travel depth to universe. We don't understand the language, but we get the essence of the emotion from them, and they get the emotion from our soul, and we understand each other. There is no language school at all anywhere. I haven't seen any. I don't think any of you will find English-speaking language on planet Zeus. These are the things which we learn, and it becomes part of us. We are part of the universal community with access to whole knowledge of the universe. Depends where we want to tap into it and how we want to tap into it. It'll be very interesting. I explained this to a bunch of space scientists, and sooner or later man will face this, now that we have opened the space. In the coming time, when we take you out of the colonies, you go to the other side of the dome, and you live a life in the strength field of the time and place in the space. What was not manifest to you inside the dome could be the creatures of that planet. That to us, through the eye of the man in the dome, was invisible. The interesting thing will be how you will communicate, how you will live amongst them. Now you look amongst them. Look alike of them, understanding the culture, understanding the possibilities of life becomes part of your life. You chose to cross the line. And as a man, we have to be prepared for that. We have looked for centuries and thousands of years into the sky to see the sun. We see nothing between us and the rays of the sun except clouds. Now we have scientists who have taken pictures above us from creatures which live above us, and we see them moving. So what is the answer? We've been blind to their existence, even though we see through them. And this is the norm in the coming time. Now that we open the plasma technology, not by rockets, which has failed us, not by the spaceship UFOs, which take us to another capsule, but by transformation, transition, transmutation of the energy of the body of the man. These are the facts which we have to face in next year or two. It's not in 10 years down the line. It's not in our grandchildren. We, as a human race, with the development, we are facing it. We have to handle it. We have to know what we're going to face with. I'm sure when we land on the moon and we go through the transmutation beyond the walls to the energy of our body, we will see creatures which live on this planet, which are not visible to us today. The planet has a gravitational magnetic field. It has a construction. It has an inertia that, by law of existence, has creatures of its own which live within its environment of zero atmosphere, as you call it. We have to open our eyes to the reality of what is to come, not ignore it to our peril and get damaged by it when we go and we expect. What are we going to see? How come you get on a plane in London and you land in Beijing and you expect to see Chinese? Do you see that many Chinese in London? Everywhere around you? My son said something very funny when we used to live in China. Papa, all the foods here are Chinese. I said, yes, of course, my dear. We live in China. Now, we don't go to see another dimension of Chinese or Black or Indians. We are going in the environment of the field difference. What was not there to us visible from here to the other side is impossibility that there is no life on any planetary system in the universe, even on the stars. If we accept this, if we understand this, we are ready to become the true travelers of the space. Otherwise, now it becomes them and us. Because now when you travel in the dimension of the soul, it's us and us and us and not them. With the knowledge that we come from another source, but we are part of them. You don't need to go sign language. Souls have no sign language. Excuse me, nothing exists. These are the realities we have to face. And it's not in the books, it's on the table, it's coming up. It's the next show. Musk failed going 200 meters up. Musk cannot even imagine such a thing exists, because otherwise he does not exist in the dream of his own capsule. But as knowledge seekers, you see, you come to us, you go to, you hear Dr. Barapur just a few minutes ago, you come to the doctors of the Keshe Foundation to get rid of your Alzheimer's. How do we do that? How do the technology allows you to expand your soul and deal with what you forgot? Now you remember and you see new things. You have to remember in the soul that when you come back, you attach it to the soul of it again. You go to the grandchildren, says, I went to the moon and there were creatures like this and that. Do they laugh at you? No. It's like you're going into back to London and say, oh, Chinese have this, and say, it doesn't exist. Chinese, who's seen that? What? Oh, what are you talking about, chopsticks? It's only chopsticks. It's only steak, fish and chips, and forks and knives. This is a new extension to our knowledge, and we have to be open to it, because it's us who fails us, nobody else. It's us who fails us the reality of existence in the dimension of existence. Jump up, go up, pay Mr. Musk to take you to the space station and look at the window and see how many floating things you see. But why don't they create a cloud that we can't see inside? The dimension of the field transfer creates a transparency that the light goes through. Our lack of vision, our lack of knowledge has made us ignorant to our own existence. And we can't do this anymore when we go into space. And it's not the next generation. As they say, the last bell has rung and man is on the way up. Shall we call it a day? And we come back next week. And we surely see you tomorrow. Those of you who participate in the, what we call the addiction session. But remember, you don't come for alcohol addiction and other addictions. That could be solved. But we are more interested in how we stop the addiction of killing and addiction of being attached to this planet. And then we'll see the progress of the man in the coming time.
Do you think you could give a quick answer to our last question here, which is from someone called Rick?
Is that Rick Hammond?
No, it's not me. It's in the Q&A. It's another Rick, and it says, I am new here. I believe there are devices to help power a home. Can I get an explanation for what is currently possible, and is it cost efficient? Thank you. Can you give a quick answer, maybe?
There are systems which are in the Keshe Foundation, and depends on what you want. It's a combination of gas and electric, which is coming in the second quarter of this year, and many other new developments. Yes, you can now buy a system of what we call home power unit, which is a hybrid system between the what we call electricity and plasma power production, and other systems which, as you go to the sales pages of Keshe Foundation, you can find and choose, and the hybrid system which produce gas and electric, and that way.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Keshe. I know you need to go here, so I'll put the store link in for Rick here there, and he can have a look at some of the different systems that are available.
Yep. See you tomorrow, and those of you register for the addiction trial, and those of you who want to join us on part of the 200, what we call the space units, join us, and we'll see the next step in the development of the technology in coming time. And we'll see where we can go. Thank you very much, Rick. And thanks. See you tomorrow and then next Thursday.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Keshe, for another wonderful workshop here. This has been the 483rd Knowledge Seekers Workshop here on Thursday, April.
About 10 years, haven't we?
Yeah, it's been, well, 9 years of workshops with the Knowledge Seekers Workshop, but you've got to take into account you did workshops every month for a year before that as well, with the private or the public teaching workshop series, which became the Knowledge Seekers Workshop. So it's actually 10 years, yes.
Yes, let's see if we can make it into 500.
Yeah, I was hoping for 500 too. Just keep pushing. Just keep pushing. Yeah. Well, thank you, Mr.
See you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye for now. Just thinking of that the other day.
We are about there. Just about there.
Yes, indeed.
3 more months and years, 500 session.
Mm-hmm.
The problem comes when you start counting 4,830.
Yeah, and we got to take into account there's already like 2,000, over 2,000 videos in the YouTube channel as well.
Okay,
Most of
see you
which
next
you
time.
are, most of which you are a star in, Mr. Kesh. Thank you for
Oh.
being our star for so many years.
We're just students learning. Thank you very much, and see you next week.
Okay, take care.
Thank you very much. See you tomorrow. Bye.
Yes, indeed. So just as a reminder, that's the addictions workshop, and starts at, well, 11:30 a.m. That's tomorrow, Friday, April 28th. And you should have received an email about the how to proceed at this point. If you didn't, then you better get a hold of the Kesh Foundation, probably through the info@kesh.foundation line. Okay, what else do we have here? I think that's it. The next public teaching workshop will be the One Nation, One Planet